Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Fatboyz Dynasty podcast. Coming at you as always, I'm Brant and Bo. Coming at you. What a crazy week one we had. We had injuries. We had guys coming out of the woodworks just pulling out fantasy numbers. We had some reminders of the past. We had some quarterbacks that some people thought were dead to the wolves, and here they are rejuvenating their careers. And that was a crazy week one. We had some big upsets. We had a tie, almost had two ties at 20 apiece. That is what we love to watch. For anybody that's doing fantasy, as we all are, there wasn't a whole lot that we wanted to see as fantasy owners on some of these guys. It was crazy, but it definitely was a great week of football to watch. What a great way to get back into it.
Yeah, Brant, it was odd this week. We had a lot of our top performers just absolutely ball out. I think we saw some numbers put up this week we may not see replicated all season, and here it is just week one. And then you also had a lot of studs who woefully underperformed this week. And I know we're going to talk about some of those here moving forward, so I won't get into that too deep here. But man, first of all, it's good to have football back, meaningful football. We wait all year. The season seems like it takes forever, especially when you draft a bad fantasy team, or you deal with injuries and you don't finish where you think you should. You just almost can't wait for the season to get over, and then as soon as it's gone, you miss it and can't wait for the next year to get back. I know you and I talked on the live start sit Sunday morning on the page about how it felt like Christmas morning, and boy did it ever. And it was a roller coaster of emotions. It was a roller coaster of highs and lows. As a Falcons fan, I got more of what I'm used to and blowing a pretty good sized lead. So, something to make you feel like you're at home again.
And I got to feel like one of the smartest people in the U.S. when I called it a few weeks ago that Russell was not going to come into Seattle and walk out with that dub. Now, if you remember correctly when we did discuss this, I said there won't be many other wins for Seattle to have the rest of this year. But that win was a little extra special to me and a little extra special to, I believe, to the Seahawks to beat Russell in his first game. I'm gonna talk about that game just for a quick minute before we hop into injuries. Because I don't think we really broke that down because we did a lot of our breakdowns before that game was over last night. That game last night, you know me, I am faithful Seattle. I watched that from opening kick to that last final knee where Hackett thought he had 3 timeouts. Now this game here, do not look at this for Denver. Denver played almost 0 snaps together in the preseason. So these guys here, before I jump into this, you have nothing written down off this game too much, do you? I don't want to be giving up something that you looked into.
No, I didn't expect to be doing this, but Denver looks a lot better than they scored. I'll say that.
Yes. Denver's the passing was there, the routes were there. It's that chemistry's not there because they haven't seen the field together. Denver's a team that if you own any of these players in fantasy, do not go out and desperately drop them or trade them for nothing. This team will get on it, and this team is going to be fun to watch. Let's get into our Sundays and injury news and everything else that you got.
All right, so Brant, I want to play like a little somewhat of a little game here with you, if you will. It's called Injuries Cuff. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna tell you the player. I'm gonna tell you what the injury is, how much time they're projected to miss. You tell me if there's somebody on that same player's current roster that you'd be moving to pivot to go get if you lost this player. Okay.
All right.
Starting off with running back Elijah Mitchell out of San Francisco, MCL sprain, missing 2 months.
Missing 2 months. It's a big time. That's roughly almost half the season. I think you got to get out, and if you're a Mitchell owner, you've got to get Jeff Wilson Jr. as your number one waiver claim this week. He saw 59% of the snaps. They play Seattle this week, who we just watched get torched by Javonte Williams as a receiving back. I think Jeff Wilson Jr. is the far and away handcuffed to him. Another guy that if you do miss out on, there's another two guys. Tyrion Davis-Price and Jordan Mason are two other guys that if you miss out on Jeff Wilson, I think go ahead and snag them because you know better than a lot of us do. Shanahan likes to roll out that committee, and his number one's down. You're going to see a committee. And I think all three of these guys will have some type of role. And if you miss out on who we all assume it will be Jeff Wilson's role, if you miss out, you'll at least have two more guys that may have a chance to get in there too.
Yeah, and you brought up the name that I was going to talk about in Jordan Mason, the undrafted free agent rookie running back out of Georgia Tech. He's another one that, he's the reason Trey Sermon was cut from this roster. And right now it's expected that him and TDP are going to compete for that second running back spot behind Jeff Wilson Jr. But again, we do all know that Shanahan cycles his backs. He feeds the hot hand. So, if you're in a real deep league, Jordan Mason may be somebody worth taking a shot on. I picked him up in one of my dynasty leagues about 2 weeks ago when he made the 53-man roster. But that's one that I've got my eye on, especially with the Elijah Mitchell news.
Mason, let me throw this out real fast. Mason has obviously shown and gained the respect of that coaching staff by making that roster as an undrafted rookie because, Trey Sermon, correct me if I'm wrong, the fourth-round draft pick was cut a year after.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
Yep, absolutely. All right, moving on. Keenan Allen, hamstring, week to week, most likely not going to play Thursday night football.
Yeah, I'm going to assume he's not going to play Thursday night, just like you said. Palmer's the guy that I'm looking to pick up this week to replace him. This guy had a very valuable role last year whenever Mike Williams got banged up. Palmer stepped in and had a very significant role. He saw 75% of the snap share. I'm not looking too deep into that. DeAndre Carter, I believe was his name. Obviously, I haven't looked deep into him. I think that was kind of a fluke. I think Palmer and Gerald Everett are the guys that are really going to benefit from Keenan Allen missing this Thursday, especially this Thursday game. It's going to be a fun one, and we're going to talk about that one here in a little bit.
Absolutely. There's always the one other name, too, that I want to throw out there is Jalen Guyton. That's also probably available in most leagues that may be worth rostering, in the absence of Keenan Allen. I think this week, Thursday night, is going to be a high-scoring affair, too. So, again, it's never a bad thing to get one of those weapons of a Justin Herbert or something like that. So, okay, let's go down to – let's just talk about – I got a couple of quarterbacks here. You got Dak Prescott with a fractured right thumb. He had surgery today, projected 6 to 8 weeks, but they're not going to put him on the IR. Now, if you have Dak and let's say you're in a 14-team Superflex league or a 12-man Superflex league, is the pivot just going and grabbing Cooper Rush as quick as you can, or what's the move there?
If you're in that Diva league, odds are most of the starting quarterbacks are gone. Carson Wentz is a guy that I would look for on waivers if he's there. That's probably the only one that's probably a valuable option right now that's on waivers. I am going to go out and grab Cooper Rush. This is almost the same identical injury that Russell had last year. And if you remember when Russ came back, he had trouble gripping the ball. He had trouble passing the ball. So if they rush Dak back, which it sounds like they're going to try to by not putting him on the IR, because their bye week's not till week 9, I believe was when their bye week is. In my mind, I think Dak should be out till at least week 9, come back week 10, get all that time frame to rebuild. Superflex, you're going to get Cooper Rush. Everyone else on that team, you're downgrading expectations. I think Tony Pollard and Zeke are going to be really the only two that are going to benefit from this, and maybe Dalton Schultz. But you got to temper your expectations for those wideouts, and that's unfortunate too because Gallup was going to be a very valuable piece in that offense, and now I'm not sure that this is going to be his year to be that valuable piece, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree on Gallup a little bit because Gallup's going to take, a few weeks to get back into the groove of things, get into game shape, get, caught up with everything. And so by the time Dak comes back and is healthy himself, Michael Gallup should be 100% good to go. And I think definitely it would show from watching the Sunday night game against the Buccaneers that they were missing another, true presence on the outside there. CeeDee Lamb was pretty well shut down because the Bucs really didn't have to pay attention to anybody else out there on that field. So I think Michael Gallup will be a welcome back addition.
Okay.
Next quarterback, we got Mac Jones with back spasms out of New England. This one's a day-to-day. Obviously, he went for MRIs and it came back negative. That's how they were able to determine it was just back spasms. What do you make of this? Are you lowering expectations in New England, whether he plays or not? How are you feeling there?
I mean, New England's going into Pittsburgh this week, so Mac Jones, well, we got to lower expectations on that defense, too, with Watt probably missing time, too. But yeah, no, I'm lowering expectations from already the low expectations I had of the wide receivers and that offense altogether. Mac Jones is going to take some time to get himself back to comfortable, I think. I think those back spasms are really going to pay dividend. I mean, if you look at his upcoming schedule, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Green Bay the next 3 weeks, defense that really get after the quarterback. So I'm probably fading Mac Jones, unfortunately, and in Superflex leagues, you're probably forced to start him. If you got him and you got to start him with confidence and hope for the best, unfortunately. Once again, Carson Wentz is probably really the only name out there. Now, if this becomes worse, I think that his backup can actually be very valuable. You got Brian Hoyer there who's been in that offensive system for a while. This is a guy that I may go out and I may grab in a Superflex league because this guy could have some very valuable fantasy weeks if Mac Jones misses any time.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to touch on a couple last ones too, just real quick. Not a whole lot to talk about with these. Najee Harris left the game due to a foot injury. I think he rolled his ankle there late, on top of already having an injury to his foot. Negative X-rays. He's already come out and said he's going to practice. He intends to play. This is just one to keep an eye on and maybe monitor. If you're in a shallower league and you can get Jalen Warren to go handcuff and reassure that, I'd probably consider doing that. You got Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie wide receiver from the New York Giants. He went down with a knee injury on his right side, came back in street clothes with a sleeve of some kind on his leg. He's considered day-to-day, again, one to monitor if as the week progresses. And then the last one is Chris Godwin, who left with a lame hamstring. Chris Godwin, I don't really have a whole lot to say about that because we weren't sure how ready he was going to be week one anyway. So, now we're just going to let him rest that hamstring for a little while, and it'll just be, what it is when he comes back at that point, because he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you can do as a Godwin owner is if you're in a shallower league is Julio Jones is going. We saw Julio look really good this week. And if you're in a shallow league, I definitely would take a stab on Julio Jones if he's still out there. I know a lot of people forgot about him because of his past few years have been a downfall from him. But Julio looked really, really good this year and looked like he had Tom Brady's trust right away. So if you have an opportunity to go get Julio, I think Julio is going to put up some valuable weeks.
Russell Gage, too, is another name I'll throw out as a possible option
absolutely
when he's there. So, all right. So I think that covers the most of our injuries. And, so obviously there's a certain level of panic and knee-jerk reactions when you see an injury. But there's also a lot of people who make knee-jerk reactions and press the panic button after week one. So what more of a fitting topic to move on to than press the panic button / overreactions here? Mm-hmm. And let's talk about some things from week one and talk about whether they're sustainable or if it was just a fluke thing.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this off real fast with a quarterback because we are talking about quarterbacks that possibly need to fill in for Dak and Mac Jones. Davis Mills is a guy that I'm really not. He had an amazing week this week. Nothing really, to write home about. This guy was very valuable last year at times. He finished as the QB. What was that? Where did I just miss it? I just missed it. In 2021, he finished as the QB 28. He had games where he hung over 20 points, over 15. He's pretty consistent, and he has all the weapons in the world. This is a guy that I definitely would go out and get. This week one, he just had. He went 23 of 37 for 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did have a fumble. He doesn't have that rushing upside, but this is a guy that can get you 16 points, 15 or more points a week. This is a guy that I definitely would probably look at in the waivers. And like I said, he's got all the weapons in the world with him. He had Rex Burkhead, Brandon Cooks, and a couple other receivers that stepped up for him this week. This is a guy that I definitely would look at.
Okay. All right. So you went with quarterback. I'll stick with quarterback. Let's talk about Aaron Rodgers and his woes a little bit here. So Aaron Rodgers on Sunday had a stat line of 34 attempts, 22 completions for 195 yards, an interception, and a fumble to go along with that. Now, I do want to pump the brakes here slightly as a little precursor here and say that last season, week one, they were abysmal as well. And like Aaron Rodgers said in his press conference yesterday, they put 4 more points on the board Sunday than they did in week one last year, and they bounced back just fine. So Aaron Rodgers thinks they're going to bounce back, but we'll see. So let's talk about some of his pass catchers here real quick. So Robert Tonyan, tight end, was on the field for 36% of snaps. 5 targets, 3 receptions, 36 yards.
Yeah, coming back from an injury also.
Correct. Week 1, Sammy Watkins, explosion time, 67% snap share, 3 targets, 3 receptions for 18 yards.
Okay.
Randall Cobb, 61% of the snaps, 3 targets, 2 receptions for 14 yards. Romeo Doubs, rookie wide receiver, 57% snap share, 5 targets, 4 receptions, 37 yards. And Christian Watson, the other rookie, with the probably worst drop of the season in week 1, 66% snap share, 4 targets, 2 receptions, 34 yards. Some of these did come with Jordan Love for all these guys on the field rather than Aaron Rodgers. But I think it was worth noting that not even Aaron Jones led this team in pass catching. It was A.J. Dillon, which I think was a little bit of a surprise for a lot of us. But Aaron Rodgers looked awful. The receiving core looked awful. Obviously, I know they were absent Allen Lazard. How big of a difference does Allen Lazard make next week? Or is this just a thing where they didn't get a whole lot of time to gel in the offseason and it's going to take a couple weeks to progress?
I think it's going to take a couple weeks to get this team clicking. There's not a whole lot of trust that I have in this team. I think Lazard does give them a boost. I think you see Lazard be the true one in that offense, which unfortunately for him, he's going to see a lot of the number 1 coverage, so that may actually hurt him. But if you're starting any pass catchers, Tonyan is a guy that I definitely would probably feel comfortable starting coming back from that injury. You said he saw, 36% snap share?
Tonyan.
Yeah. So I think Tanyan's snap share is going to go up. He's one of the trusted guys that Rodgers has, and Lazard is going to be a trusted guy that he has. I think those two together are maybe the only two that I would feel comfortable outside of Jones and Dillon starting. I'm definitely not hitting the panic button. There's Aaron Rodgers. This is a 2-time MVP, and he gets one of his favorite matchups this week to get himself back on track when they play the Chicago Bears in Lambeau. I'm not pressing the panic button on this offense yet, but you and me both hit this where we don't know if there's a valuable top 30 wide receiver in this offense.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be a group project for Aaron Rodgers to put up numbers similarly to what he did last year. It's going to take all these guys gelling and getting, each week one of them has to step up and make some plays, and we'll see how that progresses. I think I'm half pressing the panic button on the Green Bay offense. Obviously, they did this last year and came back and bounced back just fine. But man, if Rodgers is going to come out and put up numbers like that, it's going to be a very short season. Let's move on to something on a positive note here. Saquon Barkley, is Saquon back, or is it an overreaction to say that? I mean, on the field for 83% of snaps, 18 rushes for 164 yards, averaging 9.1 yard per carry for 1 touchdown, 7 targets, 6 receptions for 30 yards. So, 6 yards short of a 200-yard performance from Saquon Barkley this week. Is Saquon back? Is this the old Saquon, or are we just getting, is this a flash in the pan at this point?
I think that New York Giants staff has noticed what they got. And I think Barkley, as long as he's healthy, I think Barkley is back. And I think that they're going to lean on this guy. I mean, they came out and they came back on Tennessee and they won. They're going to lean on Barkley. And I think he is back as long as he is healthy. And I don't see his workload decreasing. He looked phenomenal with that workload. This is definitely a guy that if I got in the second round late first, I'm definitely happy having him as my RB1 for this season, as long as he stays healthy. And I'm sorry, the way that he ran and everything else, it looks like he's protected himself a little bit more, and so is that coaching staff. So, yes, I think Barkley is back.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's an overreaction at all to say Barkley's back. I think, the coaching change, the beefing up the offensive line, all those things are things that are working out really well for Saquon Barkley, and I think those are things that are going to ultimately result in better fantasy numbers for Saquon as the season progresses.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to hit on another set of running backs here from the Thursday night game. That I have written down. This is almost panic button worthy for me. Cam Akers, a third, fourth round draft pick ADP, compared to Darrell Henderson, who was 9th, 10th maybe. I may be actually over evaluating his ADP. 18% of snap share for Cam Akers, 3 carries, 0 targets for 0 yards, and 82% snap share for Henderson with 13 rushes, 47 yards, 5 targets, 5 receptions, and 36 yards. Now, Henderson's it's nothing jumping off the table. That 82% is what jumps off the table to me. They did play the Buffalo Bills, who have an amazing defense, and they proved that they were ready to come out and play this week. I am almost real close to smashing that panic button on Cam Akers, which I know it's funny to say because I was all over him last year prior to him tearing his Achilles. And I don't think, from watching that game, it looked like Henderson was more explosive than Akers went on the field, and Henderson's vision had just seemed to be so much better than Cam Akers, and I think you have to almost hit that panic button on Cam Akers.
I've been smashing the panic button on Cam Akers for a little over a year now, if not longer. So nothing really surprised me. I guess maybe to see how very, very little he had to touch the ball week one was kind of maybe somewhat shocking. But, it wouldn't – if you would have told me that they would have started the season on a 65 to 35 or 70-30 split with Henderson being the lead back, it wouldn't have shocked me at all. But to see how much Henderson was involved and how little Akers was, that's telling. And, if I happen to be a person who owned any shares in Akers, I'd be worried at this point.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things that I noticed that goes unrecognized a lot was Henderson's ability to pass block when they did fall back. And I think that's what kept him on the field a lot more, was his willingness to throw his nose in there and block for him. And that's what's going to keep him on the field, especially with that line being as new and beat up as they already are.
Certainly.
So one more guy I want to hit on that I have that never gets respect, and he saw 12 targets this year, this past week, on the field for 91% of the snaps. This is going to roll in with my quarterback, Brandon Cooks, guys. This man just keeps doing it. 7 receptions on 12 targets, 82 yards, 15 fantasy points this week, on the field for 91% of the snaps. This man just keeps doing it, yet nobody gives him the respect that he deserves. And this is a guy that, if the owner of him drafted him late and still won't give him the respect that he puts up, this is a guy that I'm going after and I'm trying to trade for in dynasty leagues, in redrafts, everything. Brandon Cooks is a guy that's going to constantly put up numbers every week. Go out and do what you can to get this guy. This guy is guaranteed, almost guaranteed, to be a lock in your wide receiver 2 spot every week.
Yeah, I have no problems with Brandon Cooks. The guy he finds a way to get himself separation. His quarterbacks all have trusted him throughout his career. He's definitely a guy, like you said, he doesn't get the mention and the respect that he should. But then again, when you have guys throwing up 9 receptions for 180-some yards and 2 touchdowns, it's easy to let somebody like Brandon Cooks slide to the wayside, but it needs to stop.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Brent, you were talking about Davis Mills and Brandon Cooks there. Let's talk about something that may be a little concerning out of Houston, and that's Damion Pierce and the hype train that left station potentially prematurely there in Houston. I think this is one that people may be pressing the panic button on, but it may still be premature, even though I'm not a huge Damion Pierce fan. But week one, Damion Pierce saw 29% of snaps, 11 carries for 33 yards, 1 target, 1 reception for 6 yards. Okay, now his backfield mate is the other running back there, Rex Burkhead, the 32 years young in age running back there, saw 71% snap share with 14 carries for 40 yards, 8 targets, 5 receptions for 30 yards. Now, obviously, it's week one. It's a divisional matchup. You want to put a rookie out, or don't want to necessarily put a rookie out there in big situations. You want somebody you can trust. And Rex Burkhead's a guy that's been around the league enough that you expect him not to put the ball on the field when he's out there. But that being said, those are some big discrepancies. What do you make of that there in Houston?
I think that hype train was definitely all aboard for no reason. Because I could be mistaken, but I believe Burkhead was also held out of the 2 preseason games that Pierce was. That was a backfield that I was kind of shying away from in the draft. But yeah, I think it's Rex Burkhead's backfield to lose. They obviously trust him. We know this team's going to be playing, well, I would say from behind, but they put up a decent little fight with Indy. And
they were ahead for most of the game with Indy.
So this is a team that could potentially make some shock waves. And if they're making those waves like they were in week one for this entire season, which I know week one we saw a lot of crazy things. But if this team stays in games, they're going to lean on Rex Burkhead more than I think the rookie. Not because of a fumbling issue or anything else, but because Burkhead has been around the league. Burkhead knows how to pass block. Think about who he was with for most of his career. He's with Tom Brady. In order to play with Tom Brady, you have to pass block. We know this man's willing to do that. We know this man's willing to put his body out there and help a team any way he can. And this could possibly be Rex Burkhead's backfield completely. And we may be seeing his snap share go up and Damion Pierce's go down even more.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something to be mindful of as the season goes on. I at the very least would hope that people are hesitant to put Damion Pierce in their starting lineups moving forward. But again, if you fell and succumbed to the hype train and drafted him in the 6th round, you may not have that luxury.
Yeah, Burkhead is a guy that I'm having. I think when it comes down to waivers of running backs, I think you got Wilson Jr. as your 1, and I think you have to have Burkhead as your 2. I really do.
Honestly, I couldn't make an argument against either one. They both should have good roles. Obviously, we saw what Burkhead's role looks like. We'll see what Jeff Wilson's looks like moving forward. But either 1A, 1B there, I don't think it's a hesitation. But I think those should be your number 1 and number 2 for sure in your running back waivers if they're available.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about another running back pairing here. That it seemed clear cut and dry, according to everybody with draft stock at least, and that's the Jets backfield. Now, granted, this is a very negative game script for the Jets. They were behind early and often, and so obviously we didn't get the true colors of how this may look if they're in a competitive game. But it's the Jets, and maybe they won't be in many competitive games. So Breece Hall, the rookie out of Iowa State that, was probably the consensus number 1 in most people's rookie dynasty drafts. He had a 45% snap share, 6 carries for 23 yards, 10 targets for 6 receptions and 38 yards. His backfield mate, the second-year running back, Michael Carter, had a 60% snap share, 10 rushes for 60 yards, 9 targets for 7 receptions and 40 yards. So 1 less target, 1 more reception, and significantly more yards, about 30 more yards for Michael Carter than Breece Hall. And again, it was a negative game script, but you're seeing both of these guys right there in targets, and really the only difference is the 4 carries. So what do you make of this backfield, Brant?
Well, they shared by their snap percentage, they shared the field on 5% of the snaps this week. But this is a backfield that is a true committee. You said it, and the stats prove it. They both saw 9 and 10 targets, 6 to 10 carries. This is a committee until somebody takes over, and by this week it looked like Michael Carter was the better, hotter hand. In fantasy wise, maybe not in game script wise, but this is a backfield that I would be scared to be owning anything in. If you have to start one because you own them, I can't fault you for doing it because you don't know really what you're getting out. This is the true branch off of a 49ers backfield type situation of the hot hand's going to get the money that week.
Yeah, for my 2 cents, Brant, I actually kind of almost go the opposite way. If you own one of these two guys and the target stays consistent, where we're talking almost 20 targets going to the running backs, I think you start either one of them, you're probably happy with where that finishes. Carter's base stat lines, is 6 points for rushing this week to go along with 11 points receiving. That's, 17 points out of a guy who you were drafted in the 10th round or later. That's pretty darn impressive. And then again, obviously the numbers weren't as good, but Breece Hall had around 11 points this week. Again, for week one rookie, not bad. By far the best week one rookie running back numbers of this season, at least. But again, if he hauls in, say, 2 more of those targets, you're talking about a much different feeling. But I don't hesitate to start either one of these guys if I'm in a position where I need to play them.
Okay. I want to hit on something you talk about rookie running backs real fast. Kenneth Walker was just announced he will be playing week 2 for Seattle. That will be interesting to keep an eye on this week. If you miss out on some of these guys and somehow Kenneth Walker's out there on waivers in your shallow leagues, go out and get this guy. Seattle put out easily, Penny was the first and second down back, Travis Homer was the third. Well, where does Kenneth Walker work in? Well, we're going to find out this week, and if you got that extra roster spot, we all know that Pete loves to run the ball. Not going to get into what went through his head with 5 minutes to go in the fourth when he didn't want to run the ball. Apparently he had a Super Bowl relapse, and let's throw the ball. But either way, this is a guy that I'd be stashing if I have an extra roster spot and he somehow hit waivers because of his injury scare.
Pete is going to turn 71 this week. They did announce that on the game the other night. It very well may be that he just had a brain fart and thought Russ was still his quarterback, so he wanted to pass because the Broncos needed to put points on the board. Maybe that's what it was. But Brant, let's get into this Thursday night game because this is a game that should be fairly exciting. 2 very high-powered, high-potent offenses with a lot of fantasy relevancy on them, and that's the Los Angeles Chargers traveling to Kansas City to face the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. Battle of 2 top 10 quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. First of all, who do you think wins this game? And tell me what you're looking for about this game, Brant.
What I'm looking for, I really don't know if I want to choose a winner. I'm going to go with the Chiefs because they're at home. That's really the only leverage that I have in this game. What I'm looking for is I'm looking to see who Herbert leans on when he's missing Keenan Allen. Because we know Mike Williams has injury history. We know Keenan Allen's banged up. I'd like to know who his guy is going to be if one of his main 2 miss some time. I think this is a bounce-back game for Austin Eckler. I really do. I think they're going to have to use him, milk the clock a little bit, and keep Mahomes off the field. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to see who is that number 2/3 target getter for the Chargers offense, wide receivers. That's the Chargers wide receivers because we know who really the number 2-3 target getter should be is Austin Eckler.
He should be the number 1 probably, but let's talk about some of these guys a little bit. So obviously Patrick Mahomes come off as the quarterback 1 last week. I know we talked about on our Sunday Live that we did in the morning that it'd be hard for somebody to beat Josh Allen, but 5 touchdowns will do that through 3 quarters, and that's what Patrick Mahomes is able to do. 39 passes for 30 completions, 360 yards, 5 tutties. An impressive game from him. Juju looked to be the number 1 wide receiver there. 66% of the snaps were Juju, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 79 yards. Now, did have 2 fumbles. One they lost, one that fell out of bounds. So he's going to need to get that figured out to stay in that spot moving forward. But as him going into his 4th or 5th year at this point, he should be able to figure that out. Travis Kelce Travis Kelce did Travis Kelce things, 64% of the snap, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And then the surprise one that none of us saw coming, I know, again, several people asked us Sunday morning on the live about CEH and what our thoughts were, and we weren't necessarily crazy about CEH. We did tell him to start him over some players, so maybe some people are happy with us. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 39% of the snaps, 7 rushing attempts for 42 yards, 3 receptions on 3 targets for 32 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, kind of one of those just perfect game scripts to make it look like he went off without him really going off. And then on the other side of the ball, you got the Los Angeles Chargers. You got Justin Herbert, who was sneakily efficient, threw 34 passes, 26 completions, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then the rest of it was kind of, not great. Well, I mean, Gerald Everett was pretty good, 66% of the snaps, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 54 yards, and a touchdown. About all you can ask for a tight end, not in your big 3-4 guys. And then you talked about Austin Eckler, 49% of the snaps, 14 carries for 36 yards, and another 36 yards to go with 4 receptions in the receiving game. And then the one that was probably the biggest disappointment from this Los Angeles Chargers team is Mike Williams, who was on the field for 93% of plays and only saw 4 targets, ended up with 2 receptions for 10 yards. That's woefully disappointing for Mike Williams. To be on the field for 93% of snaps and only have 10 yards to show for your effort on the day is pretty woeful. I imagine they will try to get the ball in his hands and let him improve on that, especially in the absence of Keenan Allen this week.
Absolutely. I'm pretty sure every single wide receiver on that team almost outperformed Mike Williams this week, and that is not a thing that I would be looking forward to in weeks to come. Mike Williams is going to have to step up big time if Keenan does miss. Juju, you brought up, he was questionable, but it has been noted that he is good to go for week 2. And correct me if I'm wrong, that game got turned off pretty quick. That Kansas City game did. Even the TV said, there's no point in having this one. But Mahomes and them only played the first 3 quarters, correct?
And Kansas City, well, Brent, I can't tell you because the game got turned off midway through the third after Patrick Mahomes threw his fifth touchdown. CBS said, we're tired of watching Mahomes pick on the JV football team that's the Arizona Cardinals. Let's move on to a game that's a real contest. And so they put on the Chargers versus the Raiders. But again, it was incredible to watch if you were, had any shares of the Chiefs offense. Probably significantly more painful to watch if you were invested in the Arizona Cardinals side of the ball.
That was a game that I was really looking forward to this week. I thought it was going to be a shootout, and we were going to find out a lot of things. I think really the only thing we found out is the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. I know I said...
Is it possible that it's not a Call of Duty issue for Kyler Murray?
I don't think it is. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and Arizona has some kinks to work out. Apparently, when your real number 1 guy gets suspended, your whole team falls to the wayside.
Apparently so. So, obviously, we've talked about this live a lot. We had a blast Sunday morning on the live. I know you're going to be potentially a little jet lagged this weekend, so potentially it may have to pivot from our 8 o'clock start time that we had this weekend.
9 o'clock.
Or, excuse me, 9 o'clock that we had this weekend. That'll be something we play by ear. We'll post on the Fantasyholics page at what time we expect that to be able to get started. Again, if you're, somebody who like me who wakes up at the butt crack of dawn on Sunday mornings during football season to cook a big breakfast and get in your chair and do your thinking, tune in with us if there's some of those questions that you're on the fence about. Do I start this guy? Do I start that guy? Was week 1 a fluke? Was week 1 not a fluke? Jump in. Let us give our 2 cents on it, see where we're at. I know there were several of you in the comment section there, and we had a blast Sunday morning hanging out with you guys for an hour prior to kickoff. So definitely look forward to doing that again this week.
Absolutely, and I know I'm all for it. Sunday mornings are one of my favorite mornings when the football season's on. That was a blast getting in. That was our first ever live. Great interaction with our fans. we definitely, I'm going to do my best. I get in at about midnight and have a 2-hour drive home. So I won't be getting to bed till about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Sunday morning, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to get up. I'm going to smash me a little energy drink, get me some breakfast, and we're going to do our best. We're going to be on at 9:30, and we're going to be with you guys for about an hour every Sunday morning. Get with us. Shoot your questions out at us. We're going to try our best to get to every single question, and just any questions you guys got, we have no problems getting on and answering on the live. Shoot us a message if you got a later question, or if a little bit earlier you're talking about a trade or something. Don't hesitate to reach out to us on the Fantasy Holics page, on the Fatboyz Dynasty Facebook page. But yeah, definitely Sunday mornings was a blast, and I look forward to doing that all year.
And again, don't feel like you have to reach out just to us. There's several knowledgeable people on the Fantasy Holics Facebook page. Any one of them will be happy to assist you. If you want to hear the two Fat Boys' opinion on something, ask. But otherwise, you'd be in good hands either way. Brant, I'm going to beat you to the punchline because I don't want you to forget here. You said you were going to say it every week. Don't start your studs and your flexes on your Thursday night plays. Get those guys up into the wide receiver, running back designated slots. Leave those flex plays for your later players. That way, in case there's injuries, you can pivot as the week, because we all know that sometimes injuries in practice happen, and you got to pivot away from those guys.
Absolutely, you need to save that flex for Sunday.
Absolutely. So, guys, I think that wraps it up for us this week. Happy to be back in season, getting ready for week 2. We'll see you guys Sunday morning for those of you that are brave enough to stop by and endure looking at the two of us slightly obese but still very handsome people here. So, as always, stay hungry.
And stay fat, my friends.